Hello, and welcome to the seventh episode of Be Well, Be Whole. And this is the second part of our series on the spiritual journey of self discovery. So today we're going to ponder the questions: how do we know when we are on the journey? How do we perceive of the journey? And how do we mitigate feelings of fear that will no doubt crop up during our journey? So I'll start by stating the obvious, and that is, or maybe the not so obvious, the journey always is.
Mm.
There is never a moment in our lives when we are not on the journey. When we come into this physical world, we are immediately thrust into an existence in which we have to figure things out. In fact, the only two things we know when we come into the physical realm most of the time is how to breathe and how to eat. Everything else we have to figure out: how to talk, what to say, what is language, and how do we interact with ourselves and with one another.
And so it's a very interesting sense of beginning. That is simply birthing brings us into this journey. But it's also interesting because it appears like we come already. We do come with kind of a predetermination. We Nobody teaches us to breathe.
Right.
We So there's a sort of natural programming. Nobody teaches us to eat.
Mm-hmm.
So we come, and so our beginning is not our beginning, so to speak, but it
Mm-hmm.
is a
Yeah, yeah.
thing that we come as spiritual beings already with these elements of journey
Mm-hmm.
present in our lives.
We do, and you know, I think we're kind of tapping on this, and I think we should say it explicitly. In African um, spirituality and African cosmology, um, time is circular,
Mhm.
and we go from one realm to another. So there's this sense that, and you said it, that we already are, and we come here into this physical world with certain things already innate
Mhm.
in us. Can you say a little bit more to that, Dr. Larte?
And it's important for us to recognize that we do come with stuff already within us. The Akans of West Africa say that before we enter into this life, we have a conference with God. And in that conference, which is a very personal thing, it is only your cra, your soul, that knows that thing that you figured out with God. So there's a certain figuring out pre-birth
Yeah.
as to what our incrabia, what our life plan or what our life purpose is going to be. And so we come, and we may not be conscious of it,
Mm-hmm.
yet it is programmed within us. That life plan or that life purpose is programmed within us, and we
Right.
need to figure it out.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Right. And so the gift is knowing, is having these two survival mechanisms: to breathe and to eat and
Right.
to take and to sustain ourselves as we are going along the journey of self-discovery, to discover what our soul knows
Right.
consciously.
Right.
Yeah. So
Right.
then we have to, as we are on the journey, we have to figure out these things called feelings. And why do I feel what I feel when I feel it?
Mm,
What is that about? And what's the difference between right and wrong? And who has the authority to define such things? And to that end, who is God?
mm, mm.
And what is spirit? And so I think that question, because when you talk about God and you talk about spirit, you begin to question. You're really questioning existence, and why are we here? What purpose do we serve?
When I was 8 years old, I
Mm,
was delivering Christmas cards to neighbors in our neighborhood in Accra.
mm,
And I was riding a bike. And on the way out of one house, I was riding my bike down the driveway and my brakes failed. And I hurtled into the street and onto an oncoming vehicle.
mm,
Uh, and uh, ended up in the hospital with a fractured left leg. In the course of my stay at the hospital, which was not a very long stay, but I think it was the second or the third day, a young man was admitted who had been involved in a motorcycle accident. He had been riding on a motorcycle without a helmet. And he suffered serious head injuries. He was in a bed not far away from where my 8 year old self was placed. That young man died over that night, and that was my first encounter with life, death, accident, what we call the exigencies of life. I believe that it is through experiences, through encounters, through challenges, through things that we experience
mhm,
that we begin to come to terms with feelings, come to terms with moral choices, and so on, and come to terms with, or begin to come to terms with things like God, life. What do all of these things mean?
mhm, mhm. Yeah, listening to you tell your story about your first experience of finitude
Mhm.
through somebody else. I I'm thinking also about, the question of God and spirit. Um, my first encounter with what I am naming as spirit occurred very early. And I think, and by early I mean I was in the crib, and I remember um, crying because I saw something.
Mhm.
I saw someone,
Mhm.
and my mother coming to get me. Of course, she didn't know why I was crying. I was a baby. I was her baby, and she came to get me, but I distinctly remember seeing a form. And so I've always had this sense that someone is always with me. So that is a part of the spiritual journey.
Indeed.
And who is this being? Why are they with me? What are they saying, and what does it mean for my life?
Mhm. Mhm.
um, this spiritual journey of self discovery must include all of these narratives, because they help us to give shape and form um, to the deeper meaning of life, I think.
Dreams,
Hmm.
visions,
Right.
challenges, struggles, ordinary as well as what we might term extraordinary. You know, the encounter you're talking about, even before you had words in a pre-verbal state,
Right.
you encountered someone,
Hmm.
and it's only later on in life that who that person might be
Yeah.
begins to become even more um, so yes, there are, I call them uh, transformative moments,
Hmm.
encounters with persons or experiences that we have, some of them outside of our ability to articulate.
Yeah.
So words sometimes are not the things by which we can embrace these encounters. Sometimes they are so deeply embedded that we cannot even talk about them. You know,
Right.
these are all, and I think it's important for us not to make this kind of sharp dichotomy between natural and spiritual. I think that we need to embrace it
Right. Right.
all of these encounters, these experiences, whether in conscious or unconscious mode, they all contribute towards our self-discovery.
And I think what you're saying is so important. Language is important. Spoken word is important, but it is not everything.
Right.
It's not all.
Hmm.
Some experiences just cannot be um, articulated, and I suggest that's a part of the journey as well. Is knowing when um, o- knowing when words fail,
Yes.
and being okay with it.
Mm.
Yeah, and being okay with it. Even Jesus, when Jesus is talking about the kingdom, when Jesus is talking about heaven, he cannot say what heaven is.
That's right.
It's always heaven is like, or the kingdom of God is like. Words, are important. And I guess the point I'm trying to make is self-discovery does not have to be intellectualized.
Mhm.
It's not an intellectual exercise. It's experiential.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so artists and musicians and
Yeah.
all these expressive arts are often articulating
Right.
a non-verbal form.
Dances,
Yeah,
dancers.
that's right. All
um,
these are and
Very important.
all to be embraced, all to be
Mhm.
understood as means of journeying,
Yeah.
you see, towards a greater and fuller understanding of what we are and what we be.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it can be scary.
Uh-huh.
It
It
can
can- mhm.
be scary because we are encountering the unknown. And so fear indeed is an inevitable part of this.
Yes, indeed. So let's talk about that for a minute. Fear.
Mm-hmm.
Um, on the journey. And some people, not some, a lot of people think that fear is a weakness, or that fear somehow um, is a sign of faithlessness. And that's not always the case.
Mm-mm.
It's not always the case. In fact, I think that fear managed properly, I don't think fear is a horrible ruler.
Mm-hmm.
It should not rule us, but what fear does, fear managed properly evokes wisdom,
Right.
I think.
Right. Embrace the fear because curiosity is a form of fear. You know?
Okay.
So this is the wisdom that you're talking about. Um, yeah, fear can be paralyzing,
Mm-hmm.
but fear can also be energizing. You see, and so when, for example, we speak about reverential fear,
Yes.
fear of the Lord, fear of
Uh,
yeah, there is this curiosity, this awesomeness of this unknown or this mysterious and fearful figure. And yet it is in encountering, it is in approaching, and it is in exploring
so
that
you mean we can question God?
absolutely, absolutely. In fact, I do not think that there is real faith without deep questioning.
Hmm. This is a part of the journey that's most important, I think,
Hmm.
to question and to be curious and to challenge and absolutely. And if God be God, then I think God can handle it.
Absolutely,
Hmm.
absolutely. You see, faith does not do away with doubt or questioning. In fact, faith is enhanced if
Hmm.
one is enabled to ask the most difficult questions.
Hmm.
And so, I mean, the scriptures, the Bible. I mean, have you recently read the Psalms? We love so much. The Psalms are full of questioning of God, and in fact, blaming God.
Blaming God, right?
And saying, how can you sit there when all of these wicked people are prospering, and all of the good people are suffering?
That's
The
right.
Psalms are full of such questions concerning God. And they are questions born of relationship.
Yes.
You-
Hmm.
It's because we relate to God and because we are journeying with God that we have questions.
Yes, indeed.
You
Yes,
know.
indeed.
And
Nicodemus comes to mind. I'm sorry. Go ahead. What were
so
you?
it also means that if we ask questions, then it facilitates our openness,
Uh-huh.
different perspectives,
Yes.
and different ways of being from the ones that we may have known in the past. And that
Uh-huh.
is growth. That is growth.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is growth.
Yeah.
You know. And so we move on this journey. And if I ask the questions, where did I begin to begin from? Then I come to the place where I ask the question, and where am I now?
Hmm.
Where am I now?
But
And
before you go there, though, I want us to go there. But Okay, let's talk about this. I want to stay with this questioning just a little bit
Mhm.
longer. So I'm thinking about Nicodemus,
Okay.
who comes to Jesus at night, and he has these questions. Now, the narrative kind of leaves us hanging.
Mhm.
Um, we don't know where Nicodemus lands. We don't know where he is now. We don't know where he, at the end of that conversation, what he
Right.
went or where he, what it did for his faith. I would like to believe that since he had the gumption, even though it was at night, to question Jesus,
Eh, That's a man who was afraid.
right, right, because his questioning had major implications,
Right.
not
Right.
only for his faith but also for
His position.
right, right, right,
His colleagues in the academy, and his colleagues in
in the church.
in the church.
Right.
So he had to go by night, so nobody could see him, talking to this young preacher.
Yeah, about things that challenged uh, belief systems,
Right.
because belief systems are not belief. That's me talking.
Yes.
That's my that's where I am. The system is not the belief.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And I would like to think that Nicodemus went on and continued questioning.
Mhm.
And in the question, like you said before, is definitely um, our growth.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
So where are we now?
Where are we now? And I really think that if we are in a place of questioning, then we're in a good place.
Mm, yeah.
Because this is, if I want to respond to the question, where am I now, then I am very much in a place of openness,
Hmm. Yeah.
openness to different perspectives, openness to different insights, and continuing to question. I mean, Jesus was a person who raised a lot of questions about his faith tradition, his system. We love the Sermon on the Mount. It's full of, you have heard that it was said in times past this, but I say to you that, it's full of critical,
Challenging and
yeah,
questioning.
critical challenging and questioning of the system in which he grows up. As a 12-year-old in the temple, when he's discovered by his family, he's questioning the priests, and he's engaged in dialoguing with them.
Yeah.
You know, and that is evidence of life. That is evidence of discovery. That is evidence of broadening of perspectives, and that's what I believe it's about.
And I have to say this, as you're saying that, um, we tend to, when we talk about Jesus, we tend to focus on Jesus the Christ, um, to the almost negation of Jesus the person.
Mhm.
Jesus was on his journey of self discovery as well.
Absolutely.
He didn't just accept what was handed to him, and Jesus as the model, or a model. of self discovery is totally appropriate, as is other uh, prophets and
Mhm.
priests, for sure.
Indeed. Indeed. Yeah.
So,
Well,
this concludes the second segment of the spiritual journey of self discovery and episode 7 of Be Well, Be Whole. We hope that something was said to spark um, a deeper examination of your own self discovery.
yes.
Yeah. So we'll see you all next time.
See you next time. Bye.